The first time I met Jim Anderson was in 1987 when I applied for a position at the Juvenile Court Judges Commission. I had just gotten an award as the Juvenile Probation Officer of the Year, and I saw there was an opening at the JCJC, and my wife encouraged me to apply. It was something I was interested in, and I was surprised to get called for an interview. And when I did, I was sitting next door to Jim Anderson, and I always wanted to be part of an all-star team. I viewed the JCJC as an all-star team, so something I was very interested in. Consider myself very fortunate at the time, and still consider myself very fortunate to be part of the commission.
I first met Jim Anderson when I was a new judge. He was the new director of the JCJC, and he was giving an educational program. That's probably the way almost all the judges met Jim Anderson.
I first met Jim Anderson in 1979 when we were both on a task force chaired by Judge Isaac Garb from Bucks County, dealing with the minor judiciary and status offenses in Pennsylvania.
I first had the privilege of meeting Jim when I was appointed to the Juvenile Court Judges Commission about 14 years ago. Jim was at that time, and had been for a number of years, executive director of the Juvenile Court Judges Commission.
I think Jim's contributions in a word would be immeasurable. It's a huge word, but how do you describe somebody who's been leading our system for over 30 years, who's probably written half of the Juvenile Act as it currently exists?
Jim has brought, by his leadership qualities and his work ethic, has brought the juvenile justice system in Pennsylvania to the point where it is recognized nationally as among the very top juvenile justice systems in the entire country.
In 2005, Juvenile Law Center honored Jim on the occasion of our 30th anniversary as the person who had made the greatest contributions to juvenile justice in Pennsylvania during the 30 years that we were in existence. Over the next 10 years, he only added to his resume. He did more in more ways than any other person in Pennsylvania to make sure that we had an effective, fair, rational, and developmentally appropriate juvenile justice system.
We were the first state in the country to be selected by the MacArthur Foundation to participate in Models for Change. We're constantly being asked to visit other states to share information that we have about evidence-based practices and other system reforms that we've undertaken.
I think Jim has made Pennsylvania's juvenile justice system a force to be reckoned with. And everyone says it's premier in the country. I mean, that's a given. But he has brought it to a level of professionalism and perfectionism that really hardly exists in any other area of the law that we practice in Pennsylvania. It's all because of Jim.
I think it's fair to say we're a model for the country, due in large part to Jim's work.
There's no single greatest contribution that Jim has made to the juvenile justice system, although he's made scores of them. His greatest contribution perhaps may be what he brought himself to the enterprise. A decency, a respect for people, a belief that children can turn their lives around, and that the courts and probation system in Pennsylvania can help them do that in a way that is enlightened and in the best interests of society and of the kids themselves.
Jim's most significant contribution is his work ethic and his drive for perfection and his ability to get along with others.
Simply said, I guess there's nobody in the history of our juvenile justice system who has had a greater impact than he has. When you view his predecessor, Ron Sharp, and Jim Anderson together, you're talking about 50 years of leadership in state government, which I don't know of any other agency that can say that in terms of steady leadership over time.
It's his body of work that is his greatest contribution, and that's been the most fun to see over the last 4 decades.
You know, the one thing that I believe is that the measure of a leader is often not just simply whether they do a good job, but whether or not they allow people in their organization to grow professionally so that when they leave, there's somebody waiting to take over. And Jim has just been magnificent about that, and I think the proof is in the pudding, because when Jim retired, Keith Snyder was able to step in and take his place without missing a beat. So again, the man has absolutely no pride that gets in his way or gets in the way of allowing people to grow as individuals and as members of the team. He's done that.
I guess what strikes me is he gets emotional from time to time. And you can see his lip quivering and maybe the eyes tearing up. And it's usually when he's talking about kids and what we do and how important the work that we do is.
He worked hard to make sure that children were treated fairly in Pennsylvania courts, that they weren't hurt by systems that were supposed to help them, and that they had opportunities to succeed in life.
There really isn't one extraordinary moment that I recall, but it's on occasion he will get emotional, and I think that speaks to the passion he has about the work that he does.
What might others not know about Jim? That's hard. Jim is a largely transparent person. You know, what you see is what you get, which is why he is so admired, because what we see is so grand in so many ways. Perhaps that he led a juvenile justice system in one of the largest states in the United States while coming out of one of its smallest counties, Elk County, where I guess they had elk and a few juvenile probation officers, of whom Jim was one when he began his career.
The memory I enjoy the most is the memory of Jim at a JCJC board dinner where it was in Pittsburgh at a hotel that I will not mention. And as we're sitting there, Judge Anthony looks at his salad and there's a cockroach in it. And it was, Jim's reaction to that was typical Jim. He was, at first you saw the shock, and then you saw the humor, and then you saw him take care of the situation right away. But he always, that look of shock and humor on his face that came almost instantaneously is just Jim every time.
You know, I've had the privilege of getting to know Jim on a personal level as well as a professional level, and he's extraordinarily talented, and his entire family is very, very talented musically. His daughter Kate has a band, and she's a wonderful singer. His daughter Jen and his wife Carol both teach at a high school in the Harrisburg area, and both are very deeply involved in music production. And when I say music production, I'm talking about really quality work.
The guy can sing, and his family's very musically inclined. His wife, his daughters all sing. He's made some trips to Europe with taking a group of kids who are musicians to play and to sing over in Europe with his wife and their group of orchestras.
I just thought he was a good person, a very tolerant person. He was never judgmental about me or anybody else that he encountered. You'd never hear him criticize people. He would never treat you differently, and I just thought it came from goodness. But I had the opportunity to visit Jim on the occasion of his father's death. I was able to go to the calling hours on behalf of all the members of the board. And I got a peek at Jim's private life, which he mostly kept private from everyone. And I saw then that Jim is very faith-driven in a way that is non-judgmental and very loving of everyone, but very rooted in something deeper than in just being a good person.
Jim has made juvenile justice in Pennsylvania what it is today, and we all of us owe a real debt of gratitude to him.
Jim, thanks for your support. Thanks for hiring me in 1987. I enjoyed all the work that we did together. staying late, coming in on weekends, traveling, talking about sports. I always felt like it was, I never felt like I had to go to work in the morning. I always wanted to come here, and you were a big part of that. Thanks a lot.
Jim, congratulations on your retirement. Congratulations on being recognized today. It's richly deserved. And obviously, I know you're retiring from your job, but you're not retiring from life, so I look forward to seeing you and working with you a lot in the future. One of the greatest things that I take with me in our relationship is that I consider you a friend. So way to go, Jim.
You will be missed, but your memory will be longer than either of our lives by the imprint that you've made on the juvenile justice system. And there will be many children who will benefit by the work that you did, whom you will never know, you will never meet, but they will know what you did.